Sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can change a life forever. Today, we'll share with you 5 true stories of miraculous rescues, moments where people chose love instead of indifference, and in doing so, gave fragile creatures a second chance. Story 1. The Owl in the Field. On a stormy afternoon, a fragile life nearly ended on the cold pavement. An owl, no bigger than your hands, lay trembling in the rain. The tiny bird had fallen from its nest, abandoned in the middle of the road. Gray clouds pressed low, rain lashed against its wings, drenching its body until it curled into itself, shivering in fear. Each step it tried to take was weak, trembling, and unseen. People hurried past, cars rushed by, yet no one turned to help. Quietly, it shut its eyes, accepting the end. But fate intervened. A young girl stopped mid-step, her eyes catching the little body shivering under the downpour. Without hesitation, she knelt, scooping the bird into her arms, wrapping it with her own thin, rain-soaked coat, as though she were holding a treasure too delicate to break. At home, she dried each feather with a soft towel and warmed its body with the gentlest breath of the dryer. But as she looked closer, her heart sank. The owl's eyes were swollen shut, red and oozing with infection. It made no sound, no cry of pain, only lay still, too weak to resist. With the patience of a healer, she cleaned its wounds, disinfected them, and carefully applied medicine. She cut food into tiny bites, feeding it slowly, spoon by spoon. At first, the owl barely reacted, but then hunger awoke. It ate wildly, clinging to life again. And in a fragile moment of trust, it lifted its head, straining to open its eyes, as if trying to remember the face of the one who refused to let it die. For 7 days, she cared for it, cleaning, whispering, and keeping it alive with warmth and patience. On the 8th day, the owl opened its eyes. For the first time, it cried soft notes that filled the silent room. Soon, it hopped from table to chair, and then to her shoulder, claiming her as its safe place. She gave it a name, built a nest by the sunlit window, and her family joined in the care, even creating branches on the porch so it could practice flying again. The bird that once lay broken and forgotten became mischievous, curious, and alive, flying through the house and returning to her side. From a soaked, dying creature on a rainy road to a cherished member of a loving home, the owl found not only life, but family, and those who witnessed it were left in awe, realizing that even the smallest, most overlooked beings can carry the biggest miracles of love. Story 2. The Baby Ostrich. At sunrise, the farm was still and golden, yet that morning an unexpected guest appeared. While a young girl tended to her horses, she noticed a fragile creature trembling in the corner of the stable. A baby ostrich so small it looked as though it had only just cracked its shell stood unsteadily on thin, quivering legs. Its soft feathers clung close to its body, and its wide black eyes shone with fear at the towering horses surrounding it. The curious horses lowered their heads, sniffing at the stranger. Startled, the tiny ostrich staggered backward, step by shaky step. A horse snorted gently, its warm breath rushing across the chick's face, sending it sprawling to the ground. In panic, the little bird stretched its beak forward in a feeble attempt at defense. That was when the girl rushed in. She knelt quickly, scooped the trembling body into her arms, and pressed it close to her chest. Stroking its downy feathers, she whispered soothing words, her warmth shielding it from fear. Carrying it into the shed, she placed it carefully into a crib beneath the soft glow of a heat lamp and brought a small bowl of fresh food. Freed from the cold and danger, the baby ostrich slowly calmed. At first, it hesitated, but hunger soon overcame its fear. It ate hungrily, as though it had been wandering and starving for days. Watching its desperate appetite, the girl felt her heart tighten. Alone, such a delicate life could never have survived. In that moment, compassion made her choice clear. she would raise it as her own. The very next day, she sewed a little yellow shirt to keep it warm and gave it a soft mattress for its bed. She fed it carefully, played with it, and let it grow used to the rhythms of farm life. Time moved quickly. The fragile chick began to change. Its legs stretched taller, its feathers grew thick and strong, and its eyes sparkled with awareness. In just a few months, it stood nearly level with the girl's head, majestic, yet still gentle, affectionate as ever. She often thought back to that first day when it barely fit in her arms. Now, she could sit upon its back and let it carry her across the fields. Its powerful strides painted scenes that felt like they belonged in a film about impossible friendships. Neighbors passing by would stop to admire the sight. A girl and her ostrich, walking side by side, their bond radiating something rare and beautiful. She never imagined that such a strange creature could bring her so much laughter, companionship, and love. And the ostrich, despite its towering form, was always careful, always soft in her presence, as if it knew she had once saved its fragile life. What began as a chance encounter grew into a story of devotion, a reminder that true happiness often blooms when we open our arms to the overlooked and the different, choosing love over indifference. Story 3. The Otter in the River. The river was calm that afternoon, glassy and clear under the fading Sunday. A young couple lay drifting on a float, letting the water carry them in quiet peace. Then, the silence broke. The girl suddenly gasped, clutching her boyfriend's arm. Beneath the surface, a dark shape surged toward them. Panic flashed in her eyes. She clung tightly, trembling. The boy held her hand, steady and protective, his gaze fixed on the approaching shadow, calm but ready. The figure drew closer, until their fear melted into surprise. It wasn't danger at all. It was a baby otter, small and drenched, its round eyes wide with worry. Unlike most wild creatures, it showed no fear of them. Instead, it swam directly to the float, making tiny, desperate cries. The boy extended a hand. To his astonishment, the otter clambered onto his palm as though it had been waiting for rescue, pressing its little head against his skin. Its body shivered, pitiful yet endearing. They guessed it must have been lost, wandering with nowhere to go, and in its desperation had chosen to trust humans. The couple exchanged a look. Neither could abandon such innocence. Together, they carried it home. There they bathed the tiny creature in warm water, dried its soft fur, and combed it gently. The otter lay still, surrendering completely, as if it knew at last it had found safety. Wrapped in care, it seemed to breathe out relief. From that moment, it became family. The otter thrived, its bowl always full, its days overflowing with affection. It developed a sweet, gentle nature, always craving hugs and never refusing to be carried. With each playful antic, it won over every heart in the house. On sunny afternoons, the couple took it swimming. It darted happily through the water, diving and chasing them with boundless joy. At night, it curled in the girl's arms, breathing softly, like a child in perfect sleep. Visitors who stopped by could barely tear themselves away from its irresistible charm. What began as a lost, trembling shadow in the water had transformed into a symbol of love and trust. The otter wasn't just a pet, it was living proof of the bond that can exist between humans and nature. Watching it sleep so peacefully, one couldn't help but realize happiness doesn't always come from grand things. Sometimes it arrives in the smallest form, a rescued life, a gentle friendship, a reminder that compassion changes everything. Story 4. The Fawn in the Crevice. The field was silent beneath the scorching noon sun until a faint, desperate cry rose from the ground. A man stopped, listening. The sound came again, weak but piercing, like a plea for help. He searched the cracked earth until he spotted it, a baby deer wedged deep in a narrow crevice. Barely a hand's width wide, the gap had trapped the fawn upside down, its 4 tiny legs sticking helplessly in the air. It kicked, screamed, and twisted, but the harder it struggled, the tighter the earth seemed to hold. The heat was merciless. The ground burned, the air shimmered, and the little body began to tremble, breath growing faint. Its cries turned into broken gasps of panic. The man didn't hesitate. Dropping to his knees, he gripped the fawn's legs and pulled with all his strength. The earth resisted, clinging stubbornly. But after a tense struggle, the small body came free. The fawn didn't move. Limp, its head lolled, eyes half closed, too exhausted to even lift itself. Blinking weakly, it looked at its rescuer as though begging silently, "Don't leave me." He scooped it up and raced to the nearest veterinary clinic. Doctors surrounded the fragile creature, cooling its overheated body, feeding it fluids, and administering injections. The man never left its side. He stroked its head, whispered gently, and spoon-fed milk to its trembling lips until, at last, after hours of care, the fawn stirred. Its mouth quivered. Then it drank hungrily, as though starved for days. Though the crisis had passed, it remained far too weak to return to the wild. The man made a decision. He would take it home, where safety and love could restore it fully. Days turned into weeks. Under his care, the once frightened fawn transformed. Its eyes, once clouded with despair, now gleamed with life. It often nuzzled its head into his palm, pressing close as if to whisper its gratitude. Though it had its own mattress, it often snuck into his bed, curling against him like a child. It grew to love nibbling the fresh grass of the backyard, running freely in the open space, and leaning into his touch whenever he stroked its head. Even as it grew taller and stronger, it never lost its tenderness. Wherever he went, it followed. Wherever he rested, it stayed close. Neighbors watched in awe. A wild animal, once half dead beneath the burning sun, now thrived as part of a human family. Their unlikely bond became a story that spread through the village, a reminder that a single act of compassion can breathe life back into the weakest of beings. The revival of the deer was more than rescue. It was proof that kindness, no matter how small, can ripple out and touch countless hearts. Story 5. The Quail in the Drain. At first, it looked like the girl had simply dropped something precious down the drain. She bent down quickly, searching. But then, she froze. From the darkness below came a faint sound, tiny, desperate cries echoing like a plea for help. People around her wrinkled their noses and turned away. It was filthy, smelly, and no one wanted to bother. But the girl stayed. She leaned closer, listening carefully. Even in her beautiful clothes, she didn't hesitate. Without thinking twice, she climbed down into the narrow, grimy drain. Her heart focused only on that fragile voice. Her hands reached into the shadows, then touched something soft, trembling. She lifted it gently into the light. In her palms was a baby quail, no bigger than a thumb, its body weak, its tiny feathers still damp, its eyes wide with fear. Perhaps it had fallen from its nest and slipped into the sewer. Alone in the dark, it had almost been forgotten. But now, in her hands, it was safe. The girl handed the fragile creature to her friend, and together they brought it home, hearts full of love for this tiny life. Her family welcomed the quail like a gift of fate. Because it was too small to feed itself, every sip of water and every drop of food had to be given carefully through a syringe. The girl's hands were steady and tender, as if she feared even her touch might harm it. Slowly, day by day, the little bird grew stronger. Soon, it wasn't just part of the family. It found an unlikely companion in the family dog. The two became inseparable, playing together, cuddling on a soft towel at night, often dozing off, side by side. The sight melted every heart in the house. As weeks passed, the bird's personality began to shine. It hopped everywhere, pecking at curious fingers, climbing onto shoulders, and even burrowing mischievously into its owner's hair and beard. Its tiny beak, round eyes, and cheerful energy turned it into the bright little heartbeat of the home. Its feathers matured into a beautiful gray-brown, patterned with delicate markings that drew admiration from anyone who saw it. Though it could fly in short bursts, it preferred to trot after its owners, following faithfully wherever they went. People couldn't help but smile at the odd, adorable sight of the quail at her side. What was once a forgotten life in a sewer had become a cherished soul in a family. A creature on the edge of being lost forever was now a source of joy, laughter, and love. No one could have guessed that a single act of compassion, a moment when she refused to turn away, would change everything. The quail was not only saved, but it found a home, a family, and endless affection. And in return, the girl discovered that even the smallest creature can bring warmth, companionship, and happiness beyond measure. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love and rescue. If these stories touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that together we can spread kindness to every corner of the world.